50s, as some of the radicals would like you to believe, marriage and family has been the mainstay of human culture throughout human history. Small variations along the way, but come on, marriage has always been the norm. Man and a woman, open to procreation and the next generation. Anyways, we're simply saying that which is common sense and historical fact. Well, he's looking for a new job. America, Florida, same thing, high school teacher. On his own lousy Facebook page, he seemed to say, you know, something horrific, something horrible. I think marriage is between a man and a woman. He's looking for work as well. Imagine that, actually saying marriage is between a man and a woman. Canada. There may be some homeschoolers here. Increasingly, certainly in America, Canada, and also in Australia, there's a growing homeschool movement. People are actually getting a bit tired of what's happening in the public school system, all the political correctness and all the crap that's going on. So I think, well, maybe we'll be safe. Let's educate our own kids at home. Well, Alberta in Canada has said we will have diversity education even amongst the homeschooling community. Now, by the way, whenever you hear the word diversity, especially coming from governments, you probably should run for the hills, because almost always that means pro-homosexual. You must embrace everything to do with homosexuality, and if not, you will suffer the consequences. So even if you're a homeschooler, you're not safe. Denmark. Churches there being told you must perform homosexual marriages or you're in big trouble. Now, by the way, every time this comes, and there's about 22 nations now that have gone down the road of homosexual marriage. By the way, every single one except one has been forced upon them by activist judges. It was not the will of the people. Every single one except Ireland, and even there we could discuss that. A handful of judges. And in America's case, recently, 5 judges. Unelected, unaccountable, unrepresentative judges told the entire nation what they will think about marriage. And by the way, they struck down the laws of 50 states in the process. Now that's what we call judicial activism. Judges taking the law into their own hands and telling the people to drop dead. We will decide what is right and wrong. We will make up what is law. Anyways, Denmark is one of those countries. They always say, if this goes through, it won't impact you. Churches will be just fine. You'll be exempt. Sorry, folks, whenever the government can give you an exemption for something, guess what? They can take it away real easy. So, they had all these promises in Denmark. You won't be impacted. Everything's fine. Sure enough, now the churches that refuse to toe the line, they're being targeted. Back in America, state of Vermont, right? Christian couple, Catholic couple, didn't want to do a wedding reception, said, well, look, we'd rather not for conscience sake. There's another place right here. They'd be happy to do it. Nope. They were targeted deliberately, as often happens. And this couple had to pay a $30,000 fine, right? So when these people say homosexual marriage won't impact you, try asking this couple how it's impacted them, right? Did it impact them a little bit? Can I see one hand of yes, it did? Okay, I got 3 hands. The rest of you are either sleeping or you're not with me. All right, maybe next question I'll hope for 4 hands. But come on, $30,000 just for reasons of conscience, not wanting to go that direction. UK, bed and breakfast.
I support that.
Well, good. We got a Q&A. Good. We'll do even more Q&A. Bed and breakfast in the UK. Again, Christian couple. They've had a 2-year campaign of death threats, hate mail, all because they wanted to have the freedom to decide who they preferred to have in their own bed and breakfast. Where are we at? Glasgow, Scotland. Catholic Adoption Agency had to close its doors, one in New York. Same thing just recently happened. Instead of being forced by the government to place children in the hands of households that they thought was not in the best interest of the children, they said, look, we'll rather stick with our conscience, and even if need be, we'll shut the doors. That's happening all over the place. But the activists say, this won't impact you. This won't have any impact on you. Ask these guys about an impact. UK, 40,000 teachers may be chucked out of teaching if they refuse to run with the pro-homosexual agenda. 40,000, that's a lot of teachers looking for work. UK already has got problems with employment. France, here's a French mayor who said, I prefer not to marry homosexuals. He's facing years in jail. But remember, the activist said, this won't impact you. So it must be okay, right? Years in jail. Catholic couple, $13,000, New York. Have a farm. Lesbian couple wanted to do their wedding. Why? They picked this one farm in the middle of, how many farms are there in New York? They targeted this couple. The couple said, we'd rather not, thanks. Now they're $13,000 poorer as a result. But we're told this won't impact you, okay? Cake makers in Oregon. Now this one, if this doesn't get you, I don't know what will. Now, by the way, keep in mind that almost every single one of these cases, whether it's a Christian cake maker, florist, reception center owner, you name it, they deal with homosexuals all the time. No problems. Have homosexual friends, sell goods to them, give them donuts, cakes, flowers, all the time. But this is a distinction when they're asked to do something a bit more formal and official, like cater to a homosexual wedding. Well, some of them said, well, we'd prefer not to, thank. It does go against our beliefs. We think our beliefs are important. You guys talk a lot about tolerance and acceptance. Well, hopefully you will tolerate us a little bit, okay? Well, it doesn't work that way, right? These guys had dealt with homosexuals. In fact, with this lesbian couple, they'd dealt with them for years, no problems. The lesbian couple took them to court. You can see what happened. 88 symptoms of emotional distress. Oh, gee whiz. $135,000. Anybody here got a spare $135,000? Anybody? Huh? I mean, come on. Emotional distress. Oh, I didn't get the cake I wanted. They don't need legal damages. They need therapy. They need help. Come on, if you're going to get bent out of shape over a stupid cake when there's a half dozen other bakers right next door, and they knew it. They targeted the Christians knowing they were going to take them to court. So, by the way, if somebody says homosexual marriage will not impact on you, which is said every lousy day, by the way, Penny Wong said it in the debate the other day, right? Cory Bernardi, this won't impact you. She's either lying through her teeth or she's so ignorant. Try asking this couple how homosexual marriage impacts on them, right? Come on, wake up. It's called freedom under attack. Where are we at? Here's a Tory. Oh, look at that. This was yesterday in England. A Tory, by the way, a Conservative MP. He said we should use our new anti-terror laws, not against Muslim terrorists. Against who? Those who say marriage is between a man and a woman. He's targeting Christian teachers in England. He says we should use the new terror laws against them. They're the terrorists. They say a child has a right to a mother and a father. That's terrible. Let's use these laws against them. This was yesterday. Conservative MP. Who says this won't impact you? But you're going, oh, that's overseas. No problem. Piece of cake. I live in Australia. Things are different here, right? Right? No? Oh, I'll give you a few examples, since some of you think it's not different, and you're absolutely correct, by the way. It is not different. It's just as bad. And by the way, we don't have homosexual marriage yet. It is bad here. We don't even have homosexual marriage. What happens when we get it, if it's this bad now? So hold on to your horses. Let's look at a few things in Australia, and then we'll be done. Then you take a break, Q&A, we all go home. It's a good night, right? Sydney, new law there, fathers to go from your birth certificate. This has been talked about for years now, 2008, right? When you mess with marriage, you mess with everything. You mess with mom and dad. You mess with reality. You mess with biology, right? Everything is impacted when you have homosexual marriage. Intersex, well, I've got a whole chapter on this in my book. There's at least the third gender. This is old hat, by the way. If you go to Facebook right now and ask how many genders there are, anybody know how many gender options you can get on Facebook today?
23.
Oh, 23, you guys are way. 58. 58 options you can choose from, right? If you identify as whatever, a transvestite, intersex, transgender, if you identify as this podium, well, who's to say you're not a podium? Come on, let's stop the anti-podium bigotry here. I identify this way, so put me down as a podium. Come on, when you have 58 stupid genders, this is madness. Come on. You're a man or a woman. Intersex, as I say, is a rare condition. Things like Klinefelter syndrome, documented in my book, a very, very rare and a very distinct situation from homosexuality. It has nothing to do with it. Anyways, the government's pushing at least 3 genders. Go to any of your public schools, primary schools today, you will find heaps of these kind of pro-homosexual books, even in your own school libraries, right? Some of you may have trouble sleeping at night. If you do, you're up at 4 in the morning, right? You turn on the TV, what's on? Not much, a lot of religious programming, often from America, right? So one of the shows that used to be on was Believer's Voice of Victory, American evangelists. Now, on one episode, they were discussing homosexuality. A homosexual who also had insomnia, obviously, was up late that night. He saw it. He made a complaint to Channel 10. One guy made one complaint. Channel 10 ripped the show down. You will never see it again. Now, again, most of us are sleeping. Not all of you may like American evangelists, but for all those who did, their freedom was just lost. One guy, one homosexual made one complaint. Now, by the way, when's the last time you made a complaint, right? Something, the other side. And by the way, if you did, was the show removed instantly and forever? Yeah, no? Oh. Why is that? Anyway, church camp, this is back in Melbourne, where I'm from. Phillip Island, a lot of camps down there, if you know of Phillip Island. One of them, a Christian camp, the homosexual activist said, we'd like to use your premises, thanks very much, over the weekend. Christian camp owners said, well, we'd prefer not, thank you. Once again, dragged to the courts. Once again, heavy fine, in this case, $5,000. Now, were there other camps they could have gone to? Yep. They were targeting the Christians. Lesbian couple putting pictures of their 6-year-old boy in girls' clothing, thinking that was cool. I think it's verging on child abuse, but this is, the gender bender agenda is all over the place nowadays. David Van Gen is a doctor in Toowoomba. Miranda Devine, some of you might know, a newspaper columnist. Some years back, 2011, David was asked by the Courier Mail, can you give us an article on marriage? Which he did. So, simply write an article, Courier Mail, on the benefits of heterosexual marriage. He was dragged before the Anti-Discrimination Commission. You cannot talk about the benefits of marriage, at least in Brisbane, without being dragged to the tribunal. So Miranda wrote a column on that. Who says homosexual marriage will not impact anything? To simply write a piece, requested piece for a newspaper. Some of you might know Margaret Court. She lives here in Perth. If you know anything about tennis, you might know, right? Probably the greatest female tennis player ever. Anybody here Margaret Court? All right, you got more people awake and sports literate. That's good. Margaret Court, great tennis player. So back in 2012, they wanted to name a court after Court. And they did. But all hell broke loose. The homosexual activists said, you cannot have a lousy court named after Margaret Court. Why? She's now a Christian pastor who believes marriage should be between a man and a woman. So to believe what everybody has always believed until the last few decades, they wanted to shut down the Australian Open, right? One of the great Grand Slam events, simply because they dared to name a tennis court after one of the greatest female tennis players. Tolerance, acceptance, diversity. It's not exactly how I view tolerance. This is happening more and more. Churches, hard to see, but graffiti all over the church. Why? On that billboard thing, he simply says, marriage is between a man and a woman. To say that, which you used to be able to do in a democracy, will now risk you being attacked by the tolerance brigade, right? Having your churches vandalized, graffitied. Here was a marriage truck in Lismore, same thing. Guy running for office said marriage between a man and a woman. He was attacked by the tolerance brigade. I always love it. The guy who speaks the most about tolerance tend to be the least tolerant that I've ever met. I get it all the time, by the way. I get hate mail. I get death threats on a regular basis. I don't exactly see that as tolerance, as diversity, as acceptance, but they're going on about this all the time. I wish I could feel some of the tolerance and acceptance. They would like to feel the tolerance, right? All right, Tony Abbott sitting in a Lygon Street cafe in Melbourne a few years ago, just trying to have a lousy latte or a cup of coffee, and the activists break in and attack him at, trying to have a cup of coffee on a Sunday night on Lygon Street. Tolerance, acceptance, diversity. Well, here's two people you might recognize. We just talked about her, Margaret Court, great tennis player. Oops. Who's the other guy? Huh? That looks like me. It is me. That's right. We had a rally at her church a couple years ago, April. A marriage rally saying marriage is good between a man and a woman. It's the best interest of the child. Children have a fundamental right to a mother and a father. Nothing too hardcore, I would have thought. The activists got wind of it, so on your left, there's these posters going up on all the campuses. Shut down the bigots. Don't let them speak. Sig Heil. Right? Have we had something like this before? You don't allow a certain class of people to even speak? So they came. It was a small, probably 60, 70 of the tolerance brigade. So there's the security guards we had to hire. The police were there, and the riot squad was on standby. Why? Just to get some guy like me from Melbourne to come and speak on marriage? Now we have to hire